Hello, everyone, and welcome to the RISMedia Attracting Top Talent in 2025 Innovative Recruitment and Retention Strategies panel discussion. I'm very excited to be here. This is going to be a great session. We have a great panel, and I'm excited to get started. I am the moderator for this panel. I am Matthew O'Connor. I'm with Terry O'Connor Realtors. We are a brokerage in Northern New Jersey, and very familiar with the rest of our panel, and this is going to be a great conversation. So first, I'd like to introduce our sponsor, Jay Rooney. Jay is the CEO and founder of Deposit Link, which he started back in 2017 after 23 years as one of the top ranking real estate agents and one of the top broker owners in the greater Boston area. And Deposit Link is a fabulous company, and we'll talk more about that in a minute. Hello, Jay. How are you?
Hey, Matt. Excited to be here.
Good. Next, I want to introduce Jamila Winsey, sorry. And Jamila is the Vice President of U.S. Brokerage Operations and Growth Markets at the Real Brokerage. And she's been a powerhouse in the industry for over 20 years. She ran her own brokerage, which was highly successful, which she recently transitioned into the Real Network. And I'm sure we'll hear more about that as we go forward. So hello, Jamila, how are you?
Hello, thanks for having me.
Glad you're here. And last but not least, we have Anthony Lamacchia. And of course, Anthony is the broker owner and CEO of Lamacchia Realty and Lamacchia Companies, primarily out of the Boston area, but has expanded to a much larger geography in some other states as well, and runs Crush It in Real Estate Training, and it will be another great voice to have in this panel discussion. Welcome, Anthony.
Hey, Matt, thanks very much for having me. Happy to be here with all of you.
Yeah, we're happy to have you here as well. Okay, so as we get started, I'd like to start with Jay from Deposit Link, and tell us a little bit about Deposit Link and what you do, and perhaps a little bit of how it ties into the conversation today.
Sure, thanks, Matt. So the best way to think of Deposit Link is Venmo for real estate, but on steroids. So we are a digital payments platform built specifically for the residential real estate business. We have workflows that allow real estate brokerages, title companies, certainly real estate agents to request and send money for really any reason you would need to move money in a real estate transaction. We currently have more than 2,300 brokerages across the country on the platform, and almost 200,000 agents, including some of the largest real estate companies in the world. I'm happy to say that Lamacchia Real Estate was one of our early adopters and clients. We value that relationship very much, and the feedback they've provided over the last 6-7 years has been invaluable. In terms of my background, Matt, it's relevant to this audience. I was a top producing agent and a broker owner for many years before building Deposit Link. I lived the pain and suffering of dealing with checks and wires for many, many years in both capacities as an agent and a broker owner. I say this all the time. Outside of marketing and overpriced listing, to me, there's nothing more inefficient than dealing with checks and wires as a real estate brokerage. Especially, when you get those checks in the mail that have nothing on them, or agents are spending most of their day trying to retrieve checks. So we solve a real problem in the real estate industry. It's not a nice to have, it's a have to have. If you want your agents and finance teams to be more efficient, and you want to position your company as a tech savvy, forward thinking company.
I agree with all that. They do a great job, and here we are to talk about recruiting and retention. Well, having the right tools, having the right technology, making your agents' lives easier, and if my agents hear this, I don't care, making it so that when an agent thinks of leaving, they say to themselves, geez, if I leave the company, I'm going to lose this, and that. Well, Deposit Links is one of those things that we want them to say that to themselves on, and I'll tell you, our biggest listing agents in the company, they all use it for their listings, and it works so well.
Yes, we have a conversation set up with you guys as well. And we're looking forward to talking with you some more about bringing it into our brokerage. I think it's a great product. All right, so I want to continue with our conversation, and just kind of started off with a question related to the title of the session. which is in 2025, with all the changes in our industry, all the changes in the laws, all the changes in technology, all the consolidation that's been happening, what do you think has really changed from a recruiting and a retention perspective that you have to handle differently now than we did in the past? So Jamila, if you'd start.
Yeah, no, it's we all know what's been going on in the industry, and the fact that I feel like our industry has done a whole 180. And I think the biggest thing that's changed for us is, as brokers, is that our avatars have changed. The agent population, the pool of agents that we're attracting have changed, their attitudes and how they see real estate as a broker. And so I think that it's very important to understand who we're recruiting and who we're trying to bring onto our brokerages. And some of that also includes they're asking different questions. It's no longer about what splits are you going to offer me and what's in it for me. I think brokers are also asking the question of, if you come into my office and if you come into my company, what's in it for me as well? And so I think a good symbiotic collaborative conversation has started. And it's really less about what that brokerage has in a split to offer the agent. It's really more about agents are holding brokers a lot more accountable. And I'd like to see that that's also vice versa. I think that agents are asking questions about not just, oh, you're going to give me leads, it's how are you going to help my business grow? And so the broker's responsibility has changed quite a bit too because of that. And so I think that these are things that need to be in the forefront. So I say that to say, when we talk about, obviously the tech stack is different because this is where we are right now. We're in a technology age. The level of support, the level of accountability on either side have changed as well. And I think that the broker has a new role outside of just holding that license to be a growth leader for that agent as well.
Couldn't agree more. I think those are all completely valid. Anthony, if you want to jump in on this question.
Well, I think consumers as a whole are more difficult to deal with than they were 20, 25 years ago when I got out of high school and was working in landscaping with my dad. Agents are no different. I mean, they're a consumer and they're more needy and they want more things. And in some cases, particularly in a trickier market like we've been in for 3 years, they want more, but they want to pay less. So you have to balance that. And really the way that you overcome that is you have to offer a lot of value. And it depends on the different type of model. Real has done a great job finding their niche with, the self-starter agents, the agents who have big teams and stuff. They've done a phenomenal job. And my company, we're more targeting the agent who really values having different services and support and wants a way to obtain leads and obtain training. And so it's not to say that either type of agent or either type of company is right or wrong. It's just we're targeting a little bit of a different group. Now, when you talk about what's happened more recently, Matt, I mean, I haven't been shy about my frustration with the real estate settlement and the lawsuits and all that. I mean, 2 years ago this month is when I started doing videos about how ridiculous I thought the lawsuits were, and I still feel that way, and I still feel it's a complete ripoff. The good side of our industry, the good side of that frustration and aggravation is it presented opportunity. If you were a broker owner who tackled it head on, came out with the training, came out with the right forms, and was ahead of the curve, you were able to grow your company. And that's something that we have done quite well. Now, I barely slept in the summer of 24 getting ready for the settlement, and we bought 7 companies in 24. So I didn't have much time in my pool that summer, but it was worth it because this year our business is up over 40%. And, when you're teaching and preaching and educating, you are attracting. I always say education equals attraction. And it's particularly true in this business, whether you're trying to attract buyers, sellers, or other realtors. We're so fortunate to be in a business that consumers always want to hear about it.
Absolutely right. That's not a conversation we ever have to force in this business, right? We're not going. You go to that cocktail party and people are asking you. You don't have to bring up what you do, or they know and they want to talk about it. It's absolutely true. So, So just to kind of ask sort of the opposite question, I know this is one Jay had suggested when we talked earlier, kind of the backwards looking question. Why do agents leave a brokerage? I think that can be instructive, is when you're trying to think about why they would also join a brokerage. So why do agents leave a brokerage, and then why do they come back? Because I think most good companies, which all the companies on this call are certainly quality companies, have had people who've left and who've realized they made a mistake and come back. So why do they leave and why do they come back? So Anthony, I'll let you start on this one.
Well, in the last couple of years, I would say there's two reasons. They're either leaving because there's a lack of leadership and direction, okay? Or they're an agent that's really struggling and they only have maybe a couple of sales and they want to blame their broker, so they leave. Those are really the two big reasons. More than ever, it's those two. And I mean, even last week, we had a new law go into place here in Massachusetts with respect to home inspections. It's unnecessary, this law. I mouthed off about it, just like I did the settlements and did multiple videos. But as I was doing that, I was also educating. And believe it or not, over the weekend, I heard from some of our managers and recruiters that were talking to agents in the marketplace, and there were agents out there saying, what law? There's a new law? I didn't know about this. What form? We have a new required form for home inspections in Massachusetts, just like we do for lead paint? Yes, we do. Started last Wednesday. So as much as it can be frustrating when our business gets overregulated and gets looked at under a microscope, you have to also, you can express frustration like I do, right? I tend to be the fighter for the industry, but you're being stupid and you're missing an opportunity if you're not using those frustrations and those change times to attract people. Those are opportunities to get eyeballs on you. And in this business, you need that.
Well, there's no doubt friction creates opportunities, change creates opportunities. And, I've always said, it's kind of like, it sounds like this new law that you're talking about. When things get more complicated and, agents tend to get frustrated by that, I tend to look at it in a much more positive way. These are things that reinforce the value of experts. These are the things that reinforce the value of agents. These are things that make us more necessary, not less necessary. So on the one hand, yeah, it's another nuisance. On the other hand, it's an opportunity. So Jamila, if you'd address the question.
Yeah, no, that is a great question. I agree with Anthony. I mean, at the end of the day, well, I'll even add one more thing to that. So Anthony brought up, leadership, which is a huge part of that. And then you have the agents that scream squirrel every time a new broker comes in and they want to go try the new, right? Try the new shiny toy and, oh, this has got to be better because I'm not doing what I'm supposed to do. So let me go ahead and see that whatever it is they're offering is going to give me what I need. And I always say to those agents, you're just going to meet yourself on the other side of the door. And also the support, and what I mean by support is my goal is always, if we're agents who are in our office, how do we make your lives better? What do we give you? Or what do we provide to you that make your lives better? For example, things like deposit link or a pre-listing service or helping you with your technology and making sure it's done for you. Those things that literally you don't have to think about, but they make their lives better. But at the end of the day, agents leave for several different reasons. I've seen that the number one reason is lack of support or leadership.
And it depends on the level of the agent. I want to point that out. So when Jamila and I see an agent leave for lack of support and come to our company, that's a high level agent that's selling a ton of homes and they're at a company that's doing nothing for them. Well, okay. I don't like to say lower level, but a newer agent or an agent who's only doing 3 to 8 sales a year, they don't tend to desire more support. They want to learn how to sell more. Yes. And that's why I always say there's 2 tracks with recruiting, right? And retention. Newer agents under 15 sales a year, they want leads and they want training. Then you get to 15, 20, 30 sales a year, right? And you look at Real, they've done a great job taking some of those big teams that are doing several dozen, right? Those agents want more services and support. So I didn't quite get this 10 or 12 years ago, but we've gotten much better at it. And we're better at saying, all right, which track is this agent on? We've taught our managers, we've taught our managers, you got to see, where is this agent at? Is this a newer person who really needs training and leads, or is this someone that needs services and support? I mean, we have top agents come here all the time, and sometimes they say to us, Anthony, I know you love helping agents grow. I don't want to grow my business. I just need help. I want to be able to go home and have dinner with my kids. And we know, okay, services and support, right?
No, you're absolutely right. And you got to really think about where your agents are. Because, you know, if you think about Maslow's theory of need, it's the same thing for an agent that's coming into this business, right? You come in, you want those basic needs, you need those leads, you need training, you need development. And as you climb that ladder, and then you get to that top where those agents have done everything that they've done, they've achieved the highest when it comes to production and things like that. And now they're looking for things like ancillary income. How do I retire? Legacy. You hear the word legacy so many times that we named our company Legacy. So, you know, our previous company Legacy, but it's something you have to remember. When you bring in agents into your company, you have to be very careful about identify where they are on that ladder of needs, because you need to be able to provide it. I remember a time where we couldn't bring on brand new agents because we couldn't provide a level of support that it relates to training and things like that. We had to create it, right? And then we started bringing on teams and team leaders and high producers. And we started thinking about all those things like, hey, you know what, you're at a certain age right now. I know at some point you're going to be talking about what to do with your book of business. Let's go ahead and start talking about that. Let's identify prospects to buy that book of business if you're looking to retire. So yes, Anthony's absolutely right. You need to know where your agents are, and that is on us as leaders to be able to do so.
I want to mention something, if it's okay, Jay and Matt, that she said with legacy. That's a great point with respect to acquisitions. You know, we've done a lot more acquiring of companies and large teams in the last few years. And when an owner says to you, hey, I'm not just concerned about money, I'm concerned about the legacy of the company, the organization, the good of my agents. Those are the owners that you really, really want in your company. When they say, what's in it for me, I got to get the most, back away from that, because they're all about themselves. They're not about the agents, which means their agents might be the type that are all about themselves. And I've learned that the hard way a couple of times. So I love how she mentioned that legacy word, because when you're dealing with agents that have been in the business 20, 30 plus years, that's important to them. And you want to pull those type of people into your organization.
Absolutely.
Anthony, I'm curious, Matt, if I could ask Anthony a question. I know that every situation is different, but what is the conversation like when you get that call back 6 months, 9 months after somebody leaves to return to Lamakia?
It happens probably 4 times a year now that someone leaves and then it comes back. And when I say that, I mean with bigger agents. It probably happens a dozen times a year if you count everybody, but agents that are known in the organization. And what they do is they start replying to my stories on Instagram. I notice they comment on my stuff more, and I suspect that they are testing the waters to see if I'm mad at them, and I pretty much never am. You know, if someone has to leave and go find out for themselves, go ahead. In fact, I said it to an agent over the weekend. We're moving an office into another office. We've got an agent that's a little stressed out about it. We had a lot of back and forth over a series of weeks. I finally said, listen, if you got to find out for yourself, go ahead. I mean, what else can I do here? But when they come back, they always say the same things. You know, I'm sorry. I thought it would be better there. I got promised the world. It wasn't the case. Or I didn't realize that I went to a different kind of company. And I said, oh, we tried to tell you that. Or the manager will say, we tried to tell you, but we don't stop people from coming back one time. I always say, if you leave here once, you come back once, it's fine. You leave twice, bye-bye. You know, don't come back. Right? I mean, don't come back.
Yeah.
You can't be too easy. You know, you can't be too easy. But we do allow people to come back one time, and no big deal. And honestly, I don't even. Years ago, I would get a little emotional. I'd get a little frustrated. But now, whatever. I mean, it's business. People want to leave. Go ahead. People want to go start their own company. I had a guy 7 years, 8 years ago, started his own company. I brought a thing of flowers this big to his grand opening. And I went there to the grand opening and I took a picture with him. He invited me in the picture. And I said, "You sure you want to do that?" He said, "Yeah." I was happy for the guy. It's capitalism. Good for him.
Right. World of abundance to some extent, right? You know, and
I figure, you know what? Everybody deserves the pain of being a broker. So
Right.
Anybody who's crazy enough to try it deserves the pain of doing it. So good luck.
absolutely, 100%. But I'm with Anthony too. I mean, you know, we've had agents go and come back, but I do have a come back one time rule.
Yeah.
And but it's interesting because you know, like Anthony said, it depends. I mean, sometimes I'm like, "Ooh, gosh, thank you," and I don't know if I should say that, but I'm like, "All right, bye." You know, we would have done it if you didn't do it, or the pain of those ones that were so good, it was so close, and they were, you know, they came in and they were doing really well and doing everything they were supposed to do and just staying on that roadmap and for their blueprint for their business, and they find something new and they think it's the thing that's going to get them to the next level. And unfortunately, because we've been doing this over 20 years, we've seen a lot of this, right? We've lived this life before, and we go, don't do that. But they still do it. And we go, you know, I wish you the best. Door's always open. Because in my mind, you know, you should go try it. And so, yeah, but I have a rule, and here's my rule on some of this. If I won you on money, I'm going to lose you on money. That's the reason why whenever I'm recruiting an agent, I never. Money is the last thing that we talk about. If it's not a fit, it's not a fit. We don't even go into the financial conversation.
Well, you know, one thing I want to point out is I made a decision 10 years ago that I wouldn't go wild to get those type of agents that are only obsessed with split, money. What are you going to pay me? What's my split going to be? And I made a business decision that, you know what, not only I don't want them, I want my competition to have them.
Yeah.
Because those type of agents, they hurt the culture. They tend to bleed the place dry. And I'm not going to say out of 760 agents, we don't have some that have that attitude. But we've kind of steered clear of that. You know, if I get on the phone with a recruit, I mean, I make recruiting calls pretty much every day. I'm driving to the Cape after this, and I have two sheets here for recruiting calls that my assistant handed me, that people's names that come up, and I said, I'll call them. If I'm on the phone 20 seconds and the first question out of their mouth is, "Well, what's your split? I want a better deal." I just, okay, well, hey, listen, good luck. Because they're not going to see the light with the value of our company. We have people in this company that have come over from cap companies, all these other, you know, 100% companies. We have people here who make dramatically more money than they made at those companies, dramatically. So it works for them. It's not going to work for everybody. That's okay. The people that it doesn't work for, no problem. Good luck.
Yeah, absolutely true. You know, I think the rule about someone leaving once and coming back, no problem. You know, that's the old "fool me once, shame on you; fool me twice, shame on me" kind of thing, right? And you know, we were talking about the hierarchy of needs, and you know, a lot of that, you know, sales, and when you're trying to sell your brokerage, the reason people leave or the reason people join, you know, it's addressing pain points, right? I think that's kind of, in summary, the way a lot of what I'm hearing you guys saying is, you know, agents have pain points, whatever it is. They need more training, they need more leads, they need to bring organization to their lives so that they can have more time with their kids, you know, depending on where they are in their track. I think all of that is true. And then, you know, the other thing you said, Anthony, which I thought was interesting and kind of leads me into my next question, and you too, Jamila, is that you talked about, you know, in acquisitions, broker owner, you know, and their attitude and how that speaks to the culture of the company you may be acquiring, and how that may lead to breakage in an acquisition, you know, just might not even, you know, just cause more problems inside your organization once you brought them in, as opposed to, you know, but when they were not in. And you know, Jamila, you talked about the, you know, maybe an agent where you're not that upset when they leave sometimes, right? So, you know, I want to talk about culture. You know, I think culture in an organization is so important. And you know, I want to, you know, have you guys speak to that. You know, how important do you think culture is inside an organization? How important do you think culture is in the recruiting process and the retention process. So I forget who should go first. So Jamila, why don't you take first on this one as well?
Yeah, no, culture is everything. When I first, opened up my brokerage to where we are right now, at Real, we protect our culture. It's not even a thing. Like the agents, the top producers, everyone down, everyone all the way into executive leadership to the agents. Culture is a big thing, and honestly, that's really a big differentiator for us. And it's also one of the reasons I moved our company over there, is because we also embodied that culture. And I remember we told our agents when we were moving to Real, we said they are like us but on steroids. And culture is probably the heartbeat of a brokerage. And every brokerage competes on price and tech stacks and staff and where we're located and how many agents we have and so on and so forth. But there's a vibe in a brokerage when you have the right culture, and you can't teach that. It's top down, it's bottom up, it's sideways. And so as a leader, it's super important. It's really hard though to do, but once you are very intentional about the culture in your brokerage and you articulate it, and that is a selling point also during recruiting, when you are recruiting an agent and you are describing the culture of the organization. I always say I have no a-hole policy. I don't care who you are and how much money you are making. And we had agents from 21 years old all the way to 82 years old. I will walk you out the door if you have the wrong attitude, the wrong mindset. And one of the biggest we had few cultures. We had a recognition culture. We spoiled the crap out of our agents. We had the biggest award parties. We had the biggest recognition parties. We had the biggest, summer parties and all the things, right? We spoiled our agents to the core. So much that my husband almost killed me because I was like, you spent too much money on this. We had a coaching culture, which meant that there was no agent that was ever going to go alone. If you wanted to make it in this business and we could help it, we had a thing, everybody eats, and we're going to gather around you and we're going to make sure you get it. If you don't want to, that's one thing, but if you're telling me that this is what you want to do, we're going to make sure that you get it, right? And so our culture was, if you came in as a brand new agent, you were going to do your first deal between 30 to 45 days if you plugged in. We had a culture of collaboration and mentorship, which meant that we had culture leaders within the company that basically took the time, sometimes on a Saturday, to teach certain agents how to use a lockbox code, how to open the door, where to park when you're going to enlist an appointment, what to wear. Sometimes we had those, right? And so for us, we just, the key was excellence for us. And so if you were coming to our office, understand that if you are not up to excellence, if you are not interested in excellence, at some point you're going to talk yourself out of here, and that's absolutely okay. And that's a big thing. So if you're a leader, you have to intentionally think about it and think about what your culture is. And once you decide and once you know what that is, you need to articulate it, because it becomes water and it becomes woven into the tapestry of your organization. And that is what drives a lot of successful brokerages.
Yeah, and those are all really good points. And part of building a good culture is it starts at the top. It starts with the leaders, how you treat people, celebrating wins, as you said, propping each other up, positive encouragement when someone's having a bad day. If someone's having a bad moment, hey, come on, don't talk like that. Let's figure this out. That's okay. But if there's a continual pattern of someone causing trouble in a branch office or causing trouble for the company, you have to push them out. And I'd say we probably have to do that a few times a year. This year, we had to do it with someone who was one of the biggest agents in the company. And it was not an easy decision, because I like the person and I like their family. But I felt, I didn't feel perfect about it, and I still don't, but I felt enough that I said, I think this needs to happen. There's enough going on there that it's not good for our brand. It's not good for the other agents in that area, not good for the culture of the office. And we made the decision that we made. And, when you're a business owner, you make the best decisions you can, and you live with it. And it's not always easy. if doing what we do is easy, everybody would be doing it, right? It's not easy to be a broker owner. It's not easy to be a leader. But I would say from an overarching perspective, how do you have a good culture? Treat people well, do unto others as you would want them to do unto you, right? I learned that in fourth grade. And take care of people, celebrate awards, recognition. And when you do hear of people being out of line, it has to get tamped down pretty quick. Whether it's a phone call or a friendly, hey, come on, we don't tolerate that here. And then at some point you have to be willing to take action. And sadly, human beings for thousands upon thousands of years, they have to see the leader take tough action to believe the leader will take tough action. And
Right.
it's just the way it is. I remember, I'll tell you guys a story. I remember 1994. My dad had like 6 employees and I was 13 years old, and this is in the landscaping business. And we were having some trouble with the guys. And remember, landscaping is like construction. It's a little more not so proper, and a lot of swearing. And I remember my dad was having trouble with the guys. They weren't listening. And I got in the truck one night driving home my dad, and he says, the problem is I haven't fired anyone in a couple of years. So by the end of this week, I'm going to fire someone. And I remember thinking, what the hell? 2 days later, he fires his number 1 guy. Okay, number 1 guy. I couldn't believe it. I said, this is crazy. Why are you letting him go? Let the weak links go. All of a sudden, within a week or two, everybody's working hard. Everybody's doing good together. 2 years later, that guy came back, and funny enough, that guy had dinner at my house 2 Saturday nights ago with his kids swimming in the pool with my kid.
Wow.
So it's a great story, and I didn't think of that part until we were just talking about it. But the troops have to know the leader will take action, and if they don't know that, they'll walk on you. It's just the way life works.
So Anthony, it's the age-old Machiavellian question, right? Is it better to be loved or is it better to be feared as a leader? And the answer is, it's a little bit of both.
That's
right?
right.
A little bit of both.
There's no, listen, we don't drive. When I go to the Cape today, I'm not going to drive 110 because I don't want to get pulled over. I fear a consequence, right?
Right.
When you're a leader, there has to be some element of both. And anyone who says that doesn't need to be some amount of fear factor hasn't been in leadership and hasn't actually done it. It's just the way it goes.
I love any conversation that gets into Machiavellian philosophy. So I appreciate that, Jay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, I think, like you said, Anthony, culture, golden rule, right? Do unto others. I think that's absolutely true. And, they need to see it comes from the top. And I think your comment about, it forces the leader has to be willing and able to make hard decisions, hard choices, or at the very least, have hard conversations. It's not always easy to have conversations because people, human nature, people don't want to hear something that they could be doing better at sometimes. And so you have to be willing to take those things on. So I couldn't agree more with everything everyone said. And, culture is everything. But it's everything. And then there's also a lot more, right? And so, kind of to flip the script a little bit and go to the other end of the spectrum, I want to talk about technology a little bit. And for the moment, not so much just general technology like tech stack or things like that in recruiting, because obviously tons of products out there that we all have in our tech stacks, Deposit Link being one of the great assets that we all have in our tech stack. But I want to talk for this question specifically, about like recruiting packages that are out there, whether it's like Humanize or Accorded or Brokermetrics or I think, Julie, I think you said you use BrokerKit or used to use BrokerKit. I guess what products are you guys using? How valuable are they? All that kind of conversation. So I'm just curious to get your thoughts on that. Anthony, I'll let you start on this one.
Well, technology is undoubtedly a necessary component to keeping up in the brokerage space. The agents are intrigued by it. There's a lot of things that will help the agents make their lives easier. Deposit Link is a perfect example. I mean, we used to have listing agents running around asking for checks. Where's the check? Where's the check? We lost the check. Oh, can't find the check. Now, 90% of the listing agents in my company, they're just getting the deposit in through Deposit Link, and they're verifying at the time that the deposit comes in that the money's in the account, right? So that's an example. We also use many other technologies. Real Scout has been the best IDX we've ever had. We've been doing business with them for years. We built our own CRM on the Salesforce platform, which I don't recommend. But if that doesn't say how important I think having a good CRM and a good system to run the company and for agents to organize their leads, I don't know what does, right? I mean, that's a multi-million-dollar investment that we made. And now we're investing more because frankly, we pulled back a little bit on our technological investments over the last few years just because of budget. But now we're starting to deploy. And one of the things that we just did is we're signing a deal just this week with House Whisperer. And they're an AI company that helps schedule things, and agents can just talk to it and it'll tell the CRM, you know, the notes, that can send out a calendar invite, an email, all those kinds of things. So there's a lot of technology out there. MoxieWorks is another one that's tremendous for presentations. Agents love it. ActivePipe, that's another system we use. All these systems I'm mentioning somehow hitch onto our CRM in some way, shape, or form. And that makes the agents' lives easier. So if you don't have these things, you're in trouble. But I will say, agents have to remember, okay, as much as the tech widgets and gadgets will help you, you still have to be willing to do this. Dial the phone, put the phone to your ear or the earbud to your ear, and do what the phone was originally intended for, which is talk. Because you're not going to gadget and widget your way to a top agent. You have to have relationships. You got to make dials. I just told you I'm driving to the Cape. I'm making 2 dials from this stack of paper. I have other scheduled calls throughout my ride. My kids say to me, Dad, you're on the phone so much. I said, well, that's how I make money. And my 9-year-old goes, you make money when you're on the phone? And I'm trying to like explain to him how that works. But it's true. Nothing makes us all more money than talking on the phone, in my opinion, in this business.
Anthony, question for you. Do you still have agents who will do listing appointments remotely, like via Zoom or Google Meets, or do you require that they sit at somebody's kitchen table and present?
Well, I have no say in if they do that or not. That's up to them. They're independent contractors, and some of them, most of them are back to in person, and it's been that way for 4 years. But I'll tell you, sometimes they're done over Zoom. It's particularly in the relo space. We sell a lot of homes for people that live in other areas, and especially the agents that we have in South Florida. And that's where doing the meetings over Zoom can be advantageous. But nothing, you know this, Jay, absolutely nothing in any sales environment works better than pressing palms and saying hi and being in person. And I've done that with all of you, and I'm glad to, and I look forward to the next time.
Yeah, no, it's when it comes to recruiting, of course, I look at it on both sides. You're selling, you on the agent side, the tech stack. I think Anthony has hit the nail on the head on all of that. When it comes to using technology to recruit, a lot of I do feel like a lot of brokers are missing the mark there. Obviously, identifying the agents that you want to go after, if it's new agents, mid-level agents, top producers, teams, brokerages that you want to acquire. But data is everything. I love data. I eat it for food every day. I like going in and looking at the numbers and seeing who's doing what, how they, for example, if I'm looking to acquire another brokerage or a smaller brokerage, I'm looking at everything that's going on in there. You know, who's producing, the avatars of the agents that are producing. I like to use the word avatar because yes, I do love the movie, but but it just helps me to segment my market, right? So BrokerKit, Brokermetrics, Realetics, Court.io, we just kind of started looking at as well. Just to kind of identify, and of course, just looking at those lists of agents, because you got to quartile them. You got to see where they are in their business. You cannot have the same conversation with a brand new agent as you can a mid-level agent, as you can a top producer. They all require different things, and so your conversation with them is different, and that's the reason why data and something to keep track of that, some type of CRM. To keep track of that. I don't care. There was one point we only used Follow Up Boss for recruiting, and I had to handwrite, before ChatGPT, I had to handwrite all of my copy and emails that went out to them and text messages that went out to them as well. But once you're in the office, now you're selling them on the technology that you have, Deposit Link, Moxie, anything that you have to offer them. And then not just selling them on the tools, but also quantifying it. Like, this is how you're going to make money with this tool. If you use it X, Y, and Z, if you use it this way, this is how you make money. It's not just something that you just like log into and stare at. Here, let me show you how to make money with this. And so every conversation around recruiting turns out to be a consultation on their business. And by the time they either choose to join or leave, there's always value in between those conversations.
And also, you have to train on it repeatedly, because I don't care how good the tech is. I mean, even Jay with Deposit Link, they're great. Him and I are in DC 6 weeks ago at the RISMedia CEO Exchange. And he says, hey, you know, we haven't done much training with you guys lately. I said, geez, you're right. And then I texted Jackie, our COO, and Sarah, our SVP of Finance. And I said, you know, what's our adoption rate, blah, blah, blah. Within 2 weeks, we put on a training. They got one of their people on, spoke to the company, and it improved. So don't invest in technology just to say you have it. You have to train on it in a repeated fashion, at least periodically, at least.
Yes.
Well, it's kind of like the old, adage when you talk to the conversation we have sometimes around splits. 100% of nothing is still nothing, right? I don't care how good the technology is, if you're not using it, it isn't helping you, right? I think your comment, Anthony, that the phone is the most important thing still is absolutely true. This is still a belly to belly and a relationship business. And I think one of the things that we remind ourselves, certainly in our company, is that the things we tell our agents to do to be successful are often the things we also need to be doing and reminding ourselves to do. They're a little bit different in who we're calling or some of the details, but the process is the same. We need to be doing the same thing our agents are doing. And along those lines too, the value of a brokerage and the value of a brokerage tech stack, to me, I look at them the same way. The brokerage itself and the technology we offer, we really need to be a force multiplier for our agents, right? Something that allows our agents to do more, to be more efficient. But I think we need to make sure that our agents understand the technology is not a replacement for them or for what they do. One of my favorite expressions when I have these conversations is that technology is not going to replace agents, even AI and everything going on. It's not going to replace agents, but agents who get good at using technology will replace the ones that don't. So it can very much be impactful in how successful an agent can be. Then one of the other things you guys talked about is that the different needs, and I think Jamila kind of touched on this first, the different needs of different types of agents. A new agent is going to have a different need than an experienced agent. So from a recruiting perspective, I want to talk a little bit about, do you recruit new agents or only experienced agents or both? And what do you do or say differently when talking to one versus the other? So Jamila, why don't you start on this one as well?
Yeah, no, I really recruit we actually don't use the word recruit. It's really attract. We welcome everybody.
Yes, absolutely.
And well, of course, I mean there are some criteria, but our culture has other agents attracting agents that can fit in the current culture. That's why culture is really important. When I own my brokerages, we had to think about where we were in the organization. Obviously, when we first started, we could only recruit brand new agents, and so I did a ton of training and title development, all that stuff, right? Because we still needed to prove ourselves as a brokerage in the city. We started with myself and my husband, and we grew to 8, and then of course grew to hundreds, to a few hundred after that. So depending on where we were in the business, it got to a point where I couldn't do all the training and all that anymore. So we started focusing on mid-level agents to top producers as well. The minute we got our first top producer, I mixed the heck out of that. And yes, that was PR for days. He did not like that. But I think that, part of bringing a top producer in who's a loss leader means that I get the right to market. And you can't say anything about that. But anyways, I shouldn't say that. So
hey, we like your honesty. We like your honesty.
It's true. But no, so when we started, and so we moved over to cohorts. So brand new agents in a cohort, maybe 10 to 12 a year. We knew we may keep 5 or 6 of them, and they all went through the same training program. I liked it because it almost created these little cute cliques in the office, right? And so they went through the training program together, and they all graduated together, and it was in depth. It was a 6-week training program where we eventually, and then we started recruiting teams with the model that we had, which we were at that point was a Remax, and the product and the value that we provided fit teams, and it was a lot more financially. It was financially great for them. So that was, we had a 1 point of 50-50 between teams and independent agents. Eventually, where we ended up was those mid-level agents who were doing $45,000 to $75,000 a year, you know, and a lot of times they capped even at that model, I mean, even at that range. But our goal, because we love to teach and take agents to the next level, our goal was to take them from, let's just say 75 to 150 to 250 to 500. And so because of that, we were able to have a lot more retention because we provided the tools, the support, and the training to get them there.
Yeah, Matt, my answer to that would be a lot of similarities to what she said, but also it goes back to what I said before. You have to know the agent you're sitting in front of. And I go over this with management all the time. If an agent is coming in and they're doing 5 transactions a year, probably having a hard time living in paying their bills and doing this full time at 5 transactions a year. So that person is likely going to be interested in leads and training. Then if you get an agent that comes in that's doing 25 sales a year, they're not going to be interested in leads. And frankly, they shouldn't take our company leads because the split on them wouldn't make financial sense for them if they have enough business of their own. So if they're 25 sales a year, we're barely even mentioning training and leads. Maybe in the last year and a half, a little more mention on training, and they may bring it up since so many of them watch my videos about the settlement or now the home inspection if they're a mass agent. But those agents want services and support. So that's when we talk about how we help them, how we make their lives easier, how we upload documents in the system 24/7. We have overseas staff. We give them an info sheet. We, do this, we do that. We make their life easier. If they're, how are they handling their photography? We have an entire pre-list service. We have 5 full-time photographers that do picture sign, lockbox, floor plans, 100 just listed postcards, 15 4-page color brochures. All these things are done for them. Of course, they have to pay for them, but they're done with sending one email or putting in a request for a pre-list in our intranet, right? Then we have transactional assistance. So those are the things we spend a bit more time on with those agents that come in like, I don't want to sell anymore. I just need some help. Those people you shouldn't be talking to about, we're going to grow your business and we're going to get you. All right, you do that, you're going to scare them away. They want help. And when they get help and their life gets in line, all of a sudden, they're more interested in growing again. We might talk to them about time management training, choice management training, if we're going to talk training, but we're going to stay away from do this to grow, do this to do more, do this to have more sales, because they're thinking, my husband's just about to leave me because all I do is work, or my wife's just about to leave me because all I do is work. You got to be aware of those things. And you have to listen too. I talk all day, right? But I actually, surprising, my assistants on the other side of the wall probably giggling. I actually listen more than I talk. And that's a crazy thing to think of, but it's true.
Two ears and one mouth, right?
No,
so
that's a great point, though. The listening aspect and really anticipating the needs of your agents. So there's some agents that are so good. They go out, they do their thing, they do the business, they do everything. What they're not looking for me to call them and ask them, how much more business are you going to do? They're looking for me to call them and say, hey, let's go grab a beer or something and have a conversation about your life. What do you want to do? Where do you want to take this? And I love those conversations because the most amazing things happen. I had an agent who was at the point of where they were just at burnout. They were done. They didn't want to scale because they were afraid they had to do more work. And the conversation from that wine meeting was how to leverage systems, how to basically how to hire an assistant, slowing down enough to do that, leveraging systems, creating systems. And so those became coaching conversations to, over the next 6 weeks, what do you need to simplify in your life as it relates to your business? And let's help you create those. And so those are things that you can't advertise those, right? You can't put that on a brochure, you can't put that on a piece of paper. But when you understand your agents, even for the agents coming in, when sometimes I'll ask, hey, why'd you come to us? And they said, hey, I met X, Y, and Z at an event, and she told me how much you helped to systematize her business, and now she's scaling. Those are the things that you can't advertise, but they are magnets if you know how to articulate that to your agents and help them with that. You just have to pay attention.
Success.
Yeah. Sorry. I was just going to say, in the last few minutes here, I think would be remiss not to ask Anthony about his social media strategy and how it has impacted his business over the last, 10 years or so.
Thank you, Jay. Well, the more you tell, the more you sell. And when you educate, you attract. And that's why I'm constantly putting out videos both on Crush It in Real Estate and on my personal Instagram at AJ Lamacchia. I'm constantly putting out, whether it's motivational, I call it having a crush it mindset, or just pure education to buyers, sellers, to whoever. I mean, I'm always pumping out educational content, because that is how you create an attraction. That's how you get eyeballs. And in this game, if you're not comfortable doing that, you're going to have a very hard time growing your business. Now, if you're with one of these companies that's been in the business 100+ years, maybe you can leverage that. But if you want to do what I've done, and it hasn't been easy, and go from me and one person in 2005 to 850 people today, we're going to close 3.4 billion this year for about 6,200 transactions. You're going to have to get yourself on the map. And social media helped me do that. And social media also helped me get on the news more. Last week, for the first time, I was quoted in the Boston Globe and in NBC Boston. I never spoke to them. They quoted an Instagram video that I did from Aruba last week. And it literally said in the Globe about the home inspection law, Anthony Lamacchia, broker owner of Lamacchia Realty, stated on his Instagram channel, and they put a link to it, right? You're not going to get there unless you're pumping content, and you've got to be talking about the things that people want. One last thought I want to point out before we're done. If you have a smaller company and you're newer to recruiting, do not go after the biggest agents. When you do that, the only way you're going to get them is you're going to have to give them a deal that is so ridiculous that it's going to cause you headaches later. We didn't go after any top agents till about 10 years ago, 9 years ago, okay? And the reason we didn't is I knew we weren't ready. So we home grew our own agents up. And then when we had our own top agents, then we went to recruits and said, hey, do you want to be like them? Do you want to grow? But if you try to put the cart before the horse, you're going to financially have to give in so much that it doesn't make sense. It's going to screw your business up. That's all. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, everybody. What a great panel discussion. This has just been insightful in numerous ways. So as we wrap up here, I just want to give Jay the floor one more time. And I want to thank Jay and for sponsoring and PositLink for sponsoring this wonderful panel discussion. And Jade, if you have any closing thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, talk about, value here. I can't believe this webinar is going to be free for the audience. Some of the insights and stuff that has been shared is truly remarkable. Back to DepositLink, as I mentioned at the start, I lived your life as a broker and an agent. I know what causes inefficiencies and liabilities for real estate brokerages. And if you are still managing paper checks and bank wires and money orders on a day-to-day basis, you are not positioning your company as a tech forward company with agents who are efficient. So reach out to Deposit Link. There's no cost to your brokerage or agents, no expense for your company, and would be happy to onboard you in less than a week.
And I will say, Jay speaks as someone who knows. I hate to admit it, but back when I was selling and I tried to get into Boston a little, Jay was the man in Boston. He was #1 agent there, certainly in South Boston, maybe for all of Boston. So he knows what he's talking about. And any broker owners out there should check this out. And I get paid nothing for that endorsement.
And I, for one, I'm thankful because I know that we definitely could have needed Deposit Link when we had our brokers. But hey, my husband owns a property management. Guess what he did yesterday? He signed up with Deposit. He just signed up with Deposit.
There you go. There you go.
So if you see Posh Property Managements come through, that's not you, but your folks.
That's right.
Well, thank you.
Thank you to this esteemed panel. This has been great.
This has been a great panel. Thank you, everybody, and have a great day.
You
Thank
too.
you.
Thank you all.